Okay, does IT have us ready to go?
Chuck, Michael, are we ready? All right. We are good to go, Madam Chair.
All righty. Well, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, January 26, 2021, Washington County Board of Commissioners work session. This is Chair Catherine Harrington, along with District Commissioners Pam Treese, Jerry Willey, Nafisa Fai, and Roy Rogers. The first item on our agenda today is, as usual, board and leadership communications. I would like to start off by welcoming Sheriff Pat Garrett and to have him bring forward some recent events available to all of us so that we have the opportunity of any group Q&A for 5 minutes or so. So Sheriff Garrett, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. Thank you, Commissioners. Yes, so I appreciate being allowed a few minutes just to address a constituent complaint from an incident that occurred in Aloha on January 15th. That's going back just a couple of Fridays ago, and critiqued our response to that incident, which is totally fine. We're happy to take the critique, but it's really important to best share facts and the rationale for decisions that our staff made that day. Just to go back to January 15th, our deputies and a supervisor received a complaint late morning, early afternoon from a business owner who leases space in the Aloha Mall. So this is the area of the mall that's located on the northwest corner of 185 and Highway 8. They were upset about the presence of vendors who had just showed up in the parking lot selling what was described as Trump memorabilia. So banners, flags, hats, blue line flags, some other kind of related themed memorabilia. The complaint that was filed to the county alleged the group of white supremacists had taken over the corner of the lot and set up a booth to sell hate flags and clothing. So our supervisor drove by, saw what was happening, informed the caller that if we got a request to trespass the vendors from the property owner, that we would be happy to do that. That's the legal authority that we need to enforce the trespass statute. The caller informed our supervisor that the property owner is difficult to reach, thought he was in California, that not an easy person to contact. And our supervisor said, hey, and advised him that if he can be contacted, connected to us, ask us to trespass these vendors, we absolutely will do that. And if it can't be resolved that day, that we have a trespass exclusion notice program that we would be happy to work with the property owners so that we can enforce that statute going forward if the incident were to be repeated without having to track down the property owner. It's worth noting that this location, 185 is pretty much ground zero for Aloha. Lots of vendors, routine vendors, spontaneous vendors, they use that parking lot to do fundraisers, to sell, pitch a table in an overhead cover and sell things. Today, there's seven food trucks, right, that are in the parking lot serving up what I'm sure is delicious food for passersby in our Aloha community. So I checked with County Council for their opinion about these circumstances, and I was advised that, as our supervisor indicated, Oregon law provides for trespass in a parking lot that is designated by Oregon law as premises open to the public. That is an area where it's not locked down after hours, but literally 24 hours, anyone in the public can drive through, can occupy this parking lot. The parking lot is not exclusively controlled by any business, but it is controlled really only by the property owner. And that if the property owner were to give us authority to enforce a trespass statute, that's what we need. The big lots, for example, property owner or manager has exclusive control over the inside of their store. And if they have their own exclusive parking lot, they could exercise control over that lot. But a shared lot requires someone with legal control over that lot. And in this case, it's the property owner. There could be an agreement that the property owner could make with one of the tenants to be their representative and work with us to trespass future vendors. But even that's not a foolproof plan, as the courts have made it clear that any vendor can allow anyone access to that shared space, even if the property owner does not want them there or has previously trespassed them. So it's a little bit sticky. There is a solution though, and I would say the solution is the one that we have in place a mile to the south at the Farmington Shopping Center. And I have right here the trespass exclusion notice that we have established with the property owner of the Farmington Shopping Center. And it lists the addresses of the businesses. It spells out the criteria from which we are authorized to trespass vendors or people who happen into this parking area. And this has been a successful arrangement for the vendors in that shopping center for years. This agreement is good for a year, and the handful of community outreach specialists, they keep track of these agreements and they go back and ask the property owner if they want to renew them when they're nearing their expiration date. So we're in the process right now of reaching out to the property owner where this event took place on the 15th. And then I understand today it was repeated to a smaller degree on the 18th. So looking forward, I think we have a solution for it, but I wanted to just be clear about our rationale for not trespassing. We would have violated their rights. Of course, we don't want to do that. So I'd love to entertain questions.
Commissioner Treese.
Was there any safety issues related to the event on the 15th? Or were there?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Were there any safety issues related to the event on the 15th?
We did not, we were not advised of any safety related events. One of the callers reported that one of the vendors was wearing a holstered pistol. That's absolutely legal. There were no threats. In fact, on the 18th, we did get calls of both that was the day before the election. So there was representatives from both major parties who were messaging in a way that contradicted each other. We had some concern that might turn, that might get physical, and we kept an eye, but it absolutely did not. They remained peaceful throughout.
Any other commissioner questions?
Just out of curiosity, Pat, I think you're handling it perfectly. It's always a very tightrope between freedom of speech and being obnoxious, and I understand that. But if this gets to be somewhat regular, is there, and it's going to sound like I'm just a fee guy, so I apologize in advance, is there some way we can recover our costs? Because I mean, you got to do it annually, and I mean, there could be a number of reasons people would do that. They just don't like people parking in their lot. They don't like a lot of things. So is there some sort of a format to how you apply this, or for instance, on my business, could I get one of those agreements for no cost, and you can come out and anybody just parks there because they think it's a nice place to park? I could have you enforce something. What is the criteria?
Great question, Commissioner. One of the criteria for exclusion from the premises that is listed on our agreement includes remains for more than 20 minutes on the premises without a resident present or for reasons not related to the operation of this business. So it's fairly broad in scope. And I think that this agreement is really beneficial not only to our community, but to us, because it helps us serve and partner with our community in a way that reflects the values of our community, right? And so that's really, that's a win-win for us. So I think the investment in the work, again, we just have a handful of community outreach specialists that are really connected, help us connect in a way that gets this done for us. Not a huge investment in time, but it's a huge payoff, if you will, in allowing us to do our job without running someone to getting someone on the phone in the middle of the night, or if they're in New York or California.
But I think, Sheriff, the way you explained the use of this it's for those businesses that have a shared parking lot with multiple businesses / leaseholders. So it does not apply to all parking lots under the control of a on-site property owner or a single business.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. You are correct.
Does that help, Roy?
That's great
Commissioner Rogers?
information. I kind of like the service. That would be great. I think everybody would want one of those, yeah.
No, doesn't remove the obligation of the single property owner in those cases.
Thank
But
you.
rather, we have some more complex cases that have led to some overall community needs and safety issues. So, all right, Commissioner Fye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sheriff, my question is, I think there is an on-site manager, property manager. Would he be able to sign, he or she, I don't know why I assumed, but would they be able to sign that agreement, or would it have to be the owner? Because I think the other complexity to this situation is that the owner lives far away and is a multimillionaire who's probably not paying attention to small property in Aloha or not, just to
So-
make it
So
some.
it has to be signed by the property owner, and the property manager is going to need to work with their boss in order to get the property owner's signature. We have it from our legal opinion that the sheriff is echoing. It has to be signed by the property owner. Okay, we got to go ahead, Alan. We got a packed agenda, so.
Okay, just really quickly, yes, I agree with everything Pat said, and also those agreements help protect us from getting sued, so we have clear authority. So it helps the community, it helps us.
Great. Thank you all. This is why we thought we would just bring the information forward in our public meeting so we could take care of this this need in a timely fashion without taking too much time away from the remainder of our agenda. So thank you, Sheriff Garrett, for joining us today. Okay, continuing on with normal board and leadership communication. Commissioners, who would like to go first? Commissioner Fye, you're unmuted, so should I interpret that as you're ready?
Well, I can go. I forgot to mute myself, but I can go. It's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, everyone. Tanya, Diane, and Ellen, good to see you. You know, my board update is that I'm still drinking from the fire hose. I think now I'm close to passing my swimming test, so I'm not drowning. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and if not, I got my flashlight, so surviving. Besides continuing my departmental level briefing meetings, I've attended the Metro Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation meeting as a listening participant, and heard a lot of great questions and a lot of interest to challenge ourselves in what's normal and to question the idea of business as usual. It was comforting at that meeting to hear seasoned and veteran political leaders to also request the discontinuation of the use of acronyms. I say that to say, thank goodness that I'm not alone in that request. At that meeting, TriMet did a presentation and shared the work they've engaged in to reimagine public safety. For me, it felt like it was a conversation that is to be continued and not a finished product. And really the start of the journey to reimagine public safety. I also attended my first supportive housing services local implementation plan meeting. That was very well attended by so many diverse community members and community-based organizations. And I'm really excited to dig deep and look forward to the final product that we set forth. last week was also the first week of the county college. So there's that. And then I'll just close with
Oh,
the
you're
incident-
doing AOC County College?
Yes.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I didn't know. Great. I
Yeah,
know it's an intense program. One Friday, Saturday every month for like 7 months, but it is so worth it.
yeah, I'm really enjoying the content so far. A lot to digest and swallow, but it's great. And finally, Madam Chair, I want to close with the incident that the sheriff talked about, which I was also contacted about, which impacted multiple constituents in my district, District 1, especially in the Aloha area. I think for folks who are joining us, you know, this is a group of people who set up shop in a private parking lot to sell, from what the constituents explained to me, materials with hate symbols and hate messages. The same parking lots have tons of businesses, of which many of them identify as business owners of color. People felt scared for themselves and the people that shop from them. Others have expressed, you know, the concern of their reputation being tarnished by being associated with these people that were selling these materials. Business owner that reached out to the sheriff's office, and while the sheriff's office was able to resolve this, and it took longer than the business owners would have liked. In that period of time, the business owners felt threatened and intimidated by the hate materials and the people that were selling these materials. I did have a quick conversation with our sheriff, Pat Garrett, and my understanding is that, you know, the sheriff's office followed the Oregon law of trespassing. The reason why I'm bringing this up today is to acknowledge this as an issue and raise the point that some of our laws are not serving all of our residents. As the policymakers of Washington County, who have committed ourselves of creating an equitable county for our residents through our equity resolution, I wanted to highlight this as an incident that we can learn from and that we can consider making changes in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fye. Chatting with you earlier or last week, or maybe it was yesterday, as well as the sheriff today and our work session this afternoon. It reminds me of a meeting that I had back in 2019 with a person that was helping to organize the resource in Multnomah County, primarily with Portland, but it applies to all of Multnomah County to report incidents of hate. You know, having a mechanism that residents are more comfortable with reporting versus calling 911, so that there is another resource for all the elected bodies to have the opportunity to learn more about such experiences and to get better. We don't have such a resource, but that may be something for us as a Board of Commissioners to consider and discuss moving ahead. So thank you for helping me on my journey for allyship, so that I can learn how to do a better job as an anti-racist myself. I appreciate it. All right. Who wants to go next? Who's got something active? Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
I'll go ahead. Yeah, the things that I've been working on, I think everyone knows, rural broadband. I have a meeting with Representative Marsh this week, along with Aaron Doyle and Ariane Colombo from Colpack. And so we are moving ahead to see what things we can get done in legislature this year. And that'll be good information. I'll certainly keep the commission apprised of that. The other thing that I've asked to do is kind of reconnect with our CPOs. I don't think any of our CPOs have been meeting during this pandemic, and maybe maybe they're thinking about resuming the meetings, obviously on Zoom. There was no pun intended there. So anyway, I want to reconnect with them. As I think everyone on the commission knows, we've been finishing up the ECDev interviews last week, and so that information and decision should be forthcoming here in the next, I don't know, next week or so when we get confirmation back. And then probably the number one topic that I am asked every day about are vaccinations, and so I will have more of that conversation with Marnie when she makes her COVID presentation. So that's about all I got. You're muted.
Commissioner Treese or Rogers, anyone else?
I can go. Right, I hope I didn't stand it, or Commissioner Rogers, I hope I didn't step on your toe when I jumped in here.
Nope.
So, this last week was, as all of them are, a busy week, and I would second what Commissioner Willie said about getting questions about vaccinations, about sign-up places, things like that. And in fact, I had to contact Marnie over the weekend for constituent. She was very responsive, so I appreciate that. I've had a couple constituent meetings this week, one on the exotic animal ordinance, and that was in, the explanation was in the hot sheet. So I appreciate Brad and Marnie's participation in that discussion. We also had a meeting yesterday about the In-N-Out Burger restaurant that is where they're thinking about it on Beaverton Hillsdale Highway, and some concerns about traffic. This last week, I attended the Community Action Board meeting, and we focused on the audit for financial and the regular board meeting type of things. But there was also something that I wanted to share with you. There was a note from Margaret Garza. Margaret had made a significant contribution to community action. And she also talked in her note about her experience at working at her family as a migrant workers coming to Washington County. It was very impactful. So I want to say a public thank you to Margaret for her support and to wish her well in her retirement. I also attended the ECDev manager interviews, and I think that Commissioner Willie did not mention that both of us filmed our pieces for Black History Month yesterday with TVC TV. Last thing I'm going to close with is I had an opportunity to meet with the We Below group. I don't think I mentioned this did I mention this last week? The Boy Scouts are, you know, the younger ones are We Belows, and these boys are from the Bethany area, and they reached out to have a meeting because one of their steps is to be able to, for badges, is meeting with the government official and an elected official. So it was great. It was just wonderful to listen to them. It was quite a diverse group that had very distinct concerns about getting back to the classroom. But what was amazing in listening to them, I said, what are you doing to prepare for getting back to the classrooms? And I have to tell you, they sounded a lot like Chair Harrington. So when that's a good thing. That's watch your hands, stay distant, be safe, wear your mask. So it was, and I did mention to them that we talk about that at the commission level as well. So that's one of the joys of this office, I think, for all of us, is having the opportunity to meet with young people in our communities. And it was wonderful. So with that, on to Commissioner Rogers.
Not a lot to report. Commissioner Fye talked a little bit about the JPAC. I thank the chair again. My IT guy had changed our platform for our security at midnight. I didn't realize that at 7 in the morning, so I was frozen out. I finally got back in, but I appreciate very much her being there and being able to deal with it. John Gardner, Pam, you remember him from our work systems days. He's now over at TriMet. Still haven't forgiven him for that because we liked him back at work systems. He's so terrific, but he gave a great report. And there's a lot of backstory of Multnomah County and TriMet working together on that policing. So it's a much broader issue than obviously they presented. But it was the last meeting again for Doug Kelsey, and I think you probably have all said goodbye like I have. I've had personal contact with him, and we'll miss Doug. He's certainly been excellent. We have a ACT meeting next Monday nights. Should be eventful because we're taking a look at, again, buckets of money as where things are spent, not specific projects, but we're going to get into that. 2017 meeting tomorrow morning, nice and bright and early, so that'll be interesting. And again, I get the same contacts from you. I happen to have a whole bunch of mayors in my end of the county, so they tend to be not shy about telling me their thoughts. So I will stop there. I probably will go off camera a minute because I didn't eat lunch, so I apologize. But I'll be here.
No worries. So as Commissioner Rogers mentioned, he wasn't able to dial in. Boy, talk about old school. Dialing into meetings on the telephone. Boy, am I glad we have way more than phone conferencing these days. He wasn't able to connect in to the Zoom meeting for JPAC last Thursday. I am the alternate. I don't always attend JPAC meetings, but I was ready and able in that meeting, so I advanced up there. So Washington County had a seat at the table. Commissioner Fai's already mentioned that she was also in attendance. I had a couple of months ago, can't remember if it was November or December, I think it was November, I'd had a meeting with the TriMet general manager and their lobbyist, Doug Kelsey and Bernie Bottomley, about their public safety proposal, and gave them an open invitation to come and provide a full overview to us as the Board of Commissioners for either a work session topic or a board meeting, if it would help to also get that in front of the public through a Washington County meeting. As we know, each of them is now leaving TriMet, with Bernie Bottomley retiring as well. So I have not followed up yet to see if Mr. McGrath, why can't I remember his name right off the top of my head, first name, if they want to come back in. But as mentioned, I mentioned to you last Thursday that presentation was, or last Tuesday, that presentation was coming on Thursday. They had documentation in the packet, and now they have the full presentation. So it is worth a good read, because TriMet services in the form of Max Light Rail, fixed bus routes, as well as the on-demand services are available all throughout our county via TriMet. So we had a Washington County Visitors Association Board of Directors meeting last week. They're putting together, or the CEO and her staff are putting together, a great 2021 Getaway Giveaway. So this is a business recovery program that they're putting together in support of the hospitality industry throughout Washington County. All employees of the county, as well as, well, actually members, residents of Washington County, are excluded from this raffle giveaway, because the point is to try and draw visitors from outside of the region. They'll have a number of packages that start off with stays at exclusive area hotels, as well as restaurant packages and some other amenities at 22 select properties. And they'll be promoting this to folks in an 8-hour drive from our community. So we'll see how that goes. There's still further logistics, but I wanted to let you know that that association is investing in itself to try and ensure that through the remainder of the year, there's additional recovery programs. The CEO search is underway. I've shared with you previously the job description for that. We've all been hearing from constituents, businesses, fellow elected officials, frustration over the scarce supply of vaccinations and the state's vaccination strategy with phase 1A and phase 1B. There have been multiple interagency meetings to try and help everyone understand the model, but also the logistics that are being set up. We do still have over 50,000 phase 1A members here in our Tri-County area that have not yet been vaccinated. But as we all know, starting yesterday, members of the childcare, early education, and K through 12 education realm are now eligible as well. The school districts throughout Oregon worked with the state and ODE, and they have a sequencing of waves, starting with that childcare and early education set of folks, then moving on to the youngest of the elementary school level, the next level of elementary school level, middle school, high school, and finally with district office personnel. And all along the way in each of those waves, that includes all of the, not only the teachers and the specialists, but the staff that's needed to support all of them. Our public health department is in plays a very small role in providing vaccinations for special populations, the really hard to reach populations that are not as easily or readily connected with healthcare suppliers. So I assume that Marnie will be going over more of that in our presentation tonight, but I've been in many meetings over these last several days on that. And I just want to highlight for you, because I know you got a lot of email, that we all received an email from Leah Horner with the new guidance that will be effective as of Friday, making changes to the extreme risk category to try and get more gyms and restaurants going. So that's good news in this otherwise somewhat frustrating situation that we are in with everyone else. I had a community check-in with Virginia Garcia last Friday, where we had a lot of discussion about community support, the need for financial resources to help ensure that our lower income community members have the opportunity to stay home when they are sick, especially with COVID. And I can say from personal experience, my mom's healthcare folks brought COVID into the house, and they came while they were sick, having tested positive. So my mom now has symptoms. Woohoo! So I know this from my own family experience. Not good. We also talked about, or they really hammered home the need to ensure that there is communication delivered to community members outside of internet connectivity, particularly for our older community members. So I've shared that not only with our staff, but also with the state. The state continues to be working on a marketing and messaging campaign for general deployment, but also to share with us so that all channels of community communication can continue to have better quality information. I know it's wicked frustrating. You're all doing a great job of navigating through this. I just want you to know that. I know it's hard, but you're doing everything you can, and I thank you for it. Let's see, I think that pretty much wraps up my summary for today. So we do have a roundtable next Thursday in addition to our Tuesday set of meetings, and I look forward to that. So, next Tuesday, we do have an executive session for our CWS CEO performance review. I'm a little challenged to get that final draft review off to you all, but I endeavor to get a final draft to you, hopefully no later than the end of the day, Sunday, so that you'll at least have Monday to read that. I know it's coming in late, and I apologize for that. So, and let's see. That's it from me. Leadership communication, Ms. Angie.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and good afternoon, Board of Commissioners. Sorry, I needed a drink of water first before I started to speak. So first, just to share with you all, I've had unstable internet throughout the day. So if I turn off my camera, I am still here with you. The internet becomes more stable. So just wanted to let you be aware of that. So the chair had talked about the 50,000 in 1A. I want to talk about the employees and our employee base who have been vaccinated as part of that 1A. So far, we have had 453 employees become vaccinated, and within the next 2 weeks, we will have an additional 147 employees vaccinated. And this is, if the board recalls, in partnership with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, Nafisa, Commissioner Fye. I made sure not to use the acronym there. I do want to indicate we more than likely have more employees in phase 1A that have been vaccinated, but they've been vaccinated through their provider, such as Kaiser or other large vaccination sites. So it will be extremely difficult for us as we move forward to have an accurate count of vaccinations within our workforce. Really great news from a COVID standpoint. We still do have cases, however, they are maintaining at a stable rate. So right now we have 4 positive cases and 6 employees who are in close contact quarantine. So that is much less than what the rates we were seeing a month ago. So I just want to lift up and appreciate the board's support for ensuring that we do have safe operating procedures in place at Washington County to keep our employees safe and healthy. On another good news front, we did successfully close both buyer and seller on the LOA quality and purchase. That's been a long road, but good news. I just received that news this morning. Commissioner Treese, you had highlighted Margaret Garza. I do want to indicate she is not going anywhere yet. She will be with the county for another year. She can't leave us so quickly. We really need her leadership, and I just want to express my appreciation for her agreeing to stay on a year to help with the transition in assessment and taxation. Earlier, or actually, I believe it was last week, I informed the board, Joan Nelson has accepted the interim position as we conduct a national search for the A&T director. So we will be kicking off that search at some point in February. And that concludes my weekly report.
Alan, how about you?
You'll be hearing from me a little bit later today. I have a couple items, and I apologize. I'm like a school kid looking out the classroom window at the snow outside. So anyway, you'll hear from me later. Thank you.
Diane Taniguchi-Dennis, Clean Water Services.
I'm doing the same. I'm one of those school kids that just adores snow, but it's fluffy, wet snow coming down in Tannisbourne, right in Amber Glen, and it's really beautiful out. The team is really excited about their launch of the 50th anniversary electronic annual reports. You should probably get those in your boxes. Mark Jockers and the team did just a beautiful job with this digital media product. And we've gotten some really nice feedback from partners and peer utilities about it. And they're very excited about what they were able to accomplish this year. On the COVID front, we have one new exposure case that we're managing that came from a household member. And the team member is doing fine right now, but they are at home. The team is also working on their scientific learning about the virus and the variants. And right now the team's enhancing our wellness kits so the team members can learn about FFP2 or KN95 masks and what that can do for them and their families. So we'll be augmenting their wellness kits. And if the board would like, we can also augment your wellness kits too. The team has been working with OSU on our COVID surveillance work. So they are monitoring and looking for variants in our sewage. So far, they have not detected it. So it means that the concentration isn't great enough yet for us to detect it. But it's really paying dividends to have that level of collaboration with OHA, OSU, and OHSU. On a cybersecurity front, we are getting hit with a lot more phishing emails lately. So it's strange emails. This latest one is about Katie Leader, and we don't have a Katie Leader in our group, but asking for massive amounts of money to be transferred around. But so those hackers are live and well, and they're out there. But it seems to come in waves. So we're at a kind of a peak wave right now for this activity. But thank you to the board, and we're very appreciative for this year and where we're going in the upcoming year. Thank you.
Great. Anything else, folks, before we move on to check in on our formal agenda? Oh, look at that. Yeah, we have little white bits falling from the sky here as well. They keep changing between snowflakes and raindrops. So, okay, just checking in on the formal agenda. We have a revised item to include under 4C, the members of the Salary Commission that I know we'll be talking about here in work session. We have an award memo that was added to item D under land use and transportation on the consent agenda. And the last time I checked, the agenda was Monday. So if I didn't receive any emails, Kevin, that said anything changed. So I guess I'm good to go. Okay. Any questions on today's formal agenda for tonight's meeting? I think it'll be interesting to see if we get a higher level of public comment tonight, given that it's our first evening meeting of the new year. So we'll see. Just never know. But it's really nice to not have to worry about the logistics of having tonight's meeting since we're all virtual. And I don't have to worry about employees' safety getting home in yucky weather. So I know both from prior conversations, I talked to both Chuck and Michael about how far away they live from the building, so that all the IT Zoom recording logistics are still all set. So, okay, then we'll be able to move on into our work session agenda. The next item, discussion of the slate for the Salary Commission appointments. So we have Ms. Angie and Mr. Steve Marsh. Take it away, please.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, Board of Commissioners. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Steve March. If the board recalls, Steve is acting as our consultant and leading and managing the Salary Commission process. I just want to express a deep appreciation for Steve's leadership and past experience and expertise he has brought to this process. So Steve, take it away.
Well, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Steve March. That's something we always did at Multnomah County was I self-identify ourselves for the recordings. So it's I'm a week late on coming to you with the slate. We were stuck at 4 applicants, all qualified. That and we made a big push, and we wound up with 6, all qualified. So everybody has a variety of service. We have actually, at the current time, only 2 currently in governmental service. We have a couple in what I call NGO, non-governmental service, organizations for education, and also a hospital. So a variety of backgrounds. We have a variety of education, starting with, one of them has a Juris Doctorate and used to be an employment law attorney. So a very kind of a valuable background tied in with her HR professional experience. So it's, and I mentioned her, that doesn't distinguish it very well. All applicants have been female. So we have 1 person of color. So we have a little bit of balance, which is good, a little bit of diversity there. We even wound up with 1 individual who had served 3 years as a volunteer on the Lane County Board of Compensation. So very similar to experience as to a salary commission. So it's a great group of, and I'll mention this now that I'm thinking about it, but we have one individual I didn't pick is really qualified. And so as I'm starting to find more and more people, my significant other's next door neighbor came down with COVID. And Chair Harrington, I'm so sorry that your mother has been struck. So let's hope it's a mild case. Anyhow, it's all around us. And the thought came to me, I know it wasn't anticipated in the ballot measure, but I'd asked the board to consider the possibility of adding a non-voting member as an alternate in case one of the 5 wound up having a family member that they had to take care of or something like that, you know. So that just came to me in the last 10 days when I found out about the neighbor, and now I'm hearing about your situation. So I can go through them in more detail if you'd like. I mean, you have kind of a thumbnail sketch of the 5 plus 1. 2 of them work at the same place. That's Multnomah County. I think when I reached out to them, they were kind of like, oh my goodness, we've been watching the Salary Commission forever at the county and we couldn't participate. Now's our chance. So I wound up getting 2. I reached out to Pacific. I didn't hear anything back from Pacific, but one of the individuals with the Juris Doctorate actually is a VP at Lewis and Clark. So we've got, like I say, a very good variety of experience, and county and non-county experience. The one individual who retired and moved to Washington County, it had been in a city and county in Colorado. And so she had a long-term experience there too. So would be I'm trying to actually help you in actually 21 months. You're going to be searching for new salary commission members for the next salary commission. And so I'm saying start the beginning of November. This was such a compressed time frame. We were with the holidays thrown in. It was, and I really want to thank the team. I mean, the whole team pulled together on this. The Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement Office did one of the last minute pushes came from their outreach, and so that was great. And then and the other one from the Lewis and Clark was one of my outreaches, and it was, I didn't know the person before. I just looked up names on their website. So, but it's you've got a great group, and if we engage the one as an alternate this time, next time you'll be starting probably with with a couple that are return people. So
yeah. Well, if I can just comment, I just want to echo your remarks. It really is an impressive bunch. All of us as Board of Commission members have had access to the applications. So we've had the opportunity to see how each one of these 6 people has relevant experience. And we appreciate, or I can say, I appreciate the vetting and the recommendation for this slate of 5. It is quite a mix of experience. Folks who have experience at businesses and nonprofit health organizations here in Portland and Hood River, public sector experience with the Multnomah County ESD, as well as experience on volunteer committees here in Washington County. I too was wondering a little bit at first about having 2 different members from Multnomah County, but they each have different experience that would be useful on this salary commission. And also having one person who has experience and values being stewards of the public tax dollars through the Oregon Employment Department is very valuable. I really do want to say I appreciate the idea of asking for an alternate, because as much as I appreciate the passion from Ms. Smith, as you say, retired from public sector experience in Colorado, I was a little bit concerned about her Oregon experience thus far. And it may be very relevant. I mean, after all, here we have a new CAO who was in Colorado for quite some time. So just because it's a different state doesn't mean that the experience of public service doesn't carry over. So that's where the opportunity that you've shared with us today sounds really like a great one today. So anyway, I couldn't help but jump right in. And it looks like we already have some commissioner questions and comments. So Roy Rogers, go right ahead.
Steve, I have no comment at all. I think your slate is great and you've done your work. The point was already made, but I would echo the comment about the alternate. I think that's always a very smart move. And so I would support that as well.
Commissioner Fye, Willie, and Treese, what do you think? Are you comfortable with this recommendation? Okay.
I'm comfortable and support the alternate. I think it's great, and we need to think to the future. I'm also very impressed with the applications. Thank you for your work.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Well, it's a team effort, honestly. It's been a pleasure working with the CAO's staff and herself. It's I've felt like right at home, so
great.
I could have been sitting up in my 6th floor office at the county, So
Well, it would be hard to do it on a 6th floor at the Washington County building because it's only a 3-story building. So
Right. I'll probably have to use the jail or something.
we now have virtual floors.
Right, there you go.
I have a quick question for Alan, if he's available. I assume that we can just make a motion on this slate verbally to add a designated alternate.
Yes, you can make a motion to add the designated alternate and make sure you specify that's a non-voting position.
Okay. All righty.
But do we need to identify any parameters when that alternate would become part of the committee? I mean, if there is something, if a person were ill or unable to participate, does that need to be identified?
You certainly could do that, or you could leave it to the bylaws to how that comes to fruition.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the alternate, the whole purpose of having an alternate is to fill a slot if need be, and I don't want to handcuff ourselves about that if they are identified as non-voting.
So I think you could just delegate it to the salary commission to specify in the bylaws how the alternate gets to vote.
Yep, for the alternate to step in as needed. Yep, to augment the absences of any appointed voting members. Okay, all righty. I think we're all set then for adoption tonight. Great.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. March. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you at the meeting on Friday when I do a welcome introduction. All right, we'll move on then to the community investment conversation. Oh, hello, Mr. Monday. I was just concerned that maybe we were a couple minutes early. So thanks for being at the ready. Hello, Elizabeth Mazzara Myers. I'll turn it over to the two of you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Sorry, I'm using two screens and I just wasn't sure where I was supposed to look. So I think I'm set now.
Well, I should forewarn the two of you, if you haven't heard already, that some of us have our setups near windows and we're like kids in a candy store and looking out at big fat snowflakes. So if you seem a little distracted.
Well, my windows are behind me. And so if I peek over that way, that's what I'm doing. So good afternoon, everyone. Elizabeth Mazzara Myers, Chief of Staff to Chair Harrington, here today with my colleague Marcus Mundy from Coalitions of Communities of Color. Before I begin, I want to let you know that there have been some slight amendments to the presentation you're going to see. So if you've printed one out, there'll be minor changes, nothing that will affect the presentation, and it'll be updated into the packet after today's presentation. Next slide. As I said, it's Marcus Mundy and myself here today. The goals for today are to review the Community Investment Conversation Program, to review the report prepared by the Coalitions of Communities of Color, to center this info in the board's budget planning process, and then to provide information for the public who's listening in, including links where they can find this information on the county's website. I'd like to point out that one of the slides that's different is this one right here, page number 2. This is the correct link. When I had published, we hadn't had the final link up, so that's the correct link. And when you click on the link on the left-hand side, you'll see the small little box, and you'll now see there's a Community Investment Conversations block. So thank you to the staff that helped make that happen. Next slide. Oh, and I'm sorry, and included, when you click on that, you will find this presentation, the final report, the participant guide, and the FAQs. So as you know, this was the second time the board has driven a community conversation about budgeting process and priorities. We are aware of the goals of this project, providing public education, opportunity for community visibility on the part of the board, as well as the community getting insight into agency priorities, and then an opportunity to center community needs. I do want to note here that this is a reminder that I was only the project manager for this program because our CAO and CEIO were not yet on board when we started planning for this. Moving ahead, this will be centered out of Administrator Angie's office. And so the CIO's office will be taking lead rather than myself as the Chief of Staff to the chair. Next slide. This is also a slide that's been slightly amended. All told, there were 206 total attendees that were unique, and 160 of those were unique. That means that only 20% attended more than one session. Important about the Zoom number is that is exclusive of staff, Board of Commissioners, and consulting teams. So these are actual members of the public. So that's an important number to remember. And I wanted to compare last year, 2019 with 2020, see an extraordinary increase, almost fivefold in the number of folks that participated in each session. I'm sorry that the numbers for the total people who had total numbers, oh my goodness, let me try that sentence again. The total number of members of the public who attended for 2019 are in a hard copy file in the office, and one of my colleagues was not able to access them because of what's going on right now with COVID. But as I get that number, I will update this packet so we can compare year to year. Next slide. This gives us, though, a sense of how many folks attended, our registration numbers for each event, as well as the actual attendees. Again, this is exclusive of staff, Board of Commissioners, and consulting team. The YouTube numbers I pulled as of yesterday, so we can get a full sense of who has been watching. Unfortunately, we cannot pull out who those people are, so we can't tell how many staff have watched versus members of the public. But it gives you a sort of across the board sense of who's been paying attention to this. Next slide. In an effort to always think about how we're doing with these programs, I identified a few successes. We had a robust turnout, especially growing from 2019. I think that we saw a broad spectrum of community members with a lot of good engaging conversations over the 4 sessions. And there was an opportunity for board members to directly answer questions from the community. I know that was a really important piece for the board members, and I think that went well. Next slide. I think some thoughts for what will come next. I think we've done a good job of continuing to refine our online engagement process. As you all know, we didn't start using these online tools until I think it was, the chair will remember whether it was April or May that we did our first COVID town hall. This was our 3rd program of the year, and we continue to learn. Something to consider moving ahead as we get back into in-person meetings is whether the board wants to continue some kind of online presence, whether it's a hybrid model of in-person and online, or choosing to do a Saturday morning online with others in person. So I think thinking about what that looks like going ahead will be something for the board to consider. The other feedback that we got fairly consistently was that the Budget 101 could be more brief, with more, and it really was more about having additional time for engagement with the board. Something that Marcus and I talked about was we did have that participant guide, and I think that we can, one recommendation would be to make that a little bit bigger in content, ensure that all participants have it in advance of listening session, and then lighten maybe the slide deck for the actual Budget 101 that's part of the program. So just one thought in terms of how to provide another opportunity for continuous improvement. Next slide. So I'm going to be handing off this presentation to Marcus for a few of the slides. I do want to just leave you all with a reminder that the information you're about to see are snapshots. We didn't do any scientific polling. There's not a plus or minus on accuracy or an N of any significant number, but they are important. These provide insights into the comments and concerns of the public as far as they're represented by the attendees. And I think given that we had a nice turnout, I think they're relevant as a data point for the board. At this point, I will mute myself, and Marcus, I'll turn it to you.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, commissioners, for letting me speak in front of you again today. Thank you for the opportunity to work on this project. And using this same slide, I did talk to my researchers before I did today's notes. And the one thing, and my researchers actually helped me with some of the data analysis from the time of the 4 sessions, but also just what Elizabeth said, the exact language was, it is not, because I didn't want people to be scared off to say it's not intended to have scientific accuracy. Well, you know, it's not rigorous scientific analysis. It didn't follow the scientific method, but they said it was useful, informative, although not definitive, just another data point for the commissioners, and you heard from your community. So that was straight from my researchers, because I felt uncomfortable with saying it didn't have scientific accuracy, but they just said it was a good snapshot and it was a good directionally correct way to look at things. So I did want to kind of reiterate that. Well, next slide, please. What we did during the sessions, and you all were there, you know that, we took several instant polls. And so on these polls, which we took at each one of the meetings, we talked about, I did think this was Commissioner Willie's was the first session. I think that's from his session. But what we talked about was that while the polls were a blunt instrument, again, they gave us a nice camera, a nice vision into what people were thinking. And the one thing that I would ask people to concentrate on, and I'm going to go through all 4 session slides, but what you'll notice, I want you to notice the patterns. Like in this first slide, I'll just call attention to public safety and justice. So the first 2 decreases, 48% and 24%. So 72% of the attendees who responded to that particular poll said, you know what, we think you should decrease public safety and justice. You know, about 81% said we think you should increase housing, health, and human services. 62% said you should increase culture and recreation. So again, that was just a window, and of the 57 attendees, 21 people responded. So you can get the idea of the numbers. It's a small snapshot, but for each one of the sessions, you know, it's important that you see the patterns. And even on the general government and land use and transportation, what I think you'll see from session to session is that even on those where they said, oh, no change, that was still the highest number for those 2 areas, was the fact that people say, oh, you're kind of doing it right, just keep that the same, and we'll focus on the areas that we think have the biggest impact. Next slide, please. In the session that was led by Commissioner Treese and Chair Harrington, a few more people came, and I think that's, you know, the word started getting out. People started seeing there was value in listening to these budget sessions. Now, this one, only 40% of the people, 23% said greatly decrease, and 17% said kind of decrease public safety and justice. And then the others kind of matched the other ones. 63% said increase housing, health, and human services, and 57% and 55% said, no, general government and land use are about the right place. So again, even where the areas that were the highest for no change, you know, though, I mean, even for the ones that I didn't just highlight, but for culture and for land use and for general government, those areas said, oh, you're kind of doing it right, leave that in the middle, and we don't suggest the big variance and changes. So again, that's the one thing I did notice in going through the data, next slide please, was that for each section, we're at the November 18th Commissioner Rogers meeting now. Now I did notice in Commissioner Rogers' session, people were very passionate. They were passionate with public safety and justice. You add those 2 numbers of decrease together, 74% said we must decrease, and 86% said we must increase housing, health, and human services. And I will note that at the beginning of each one of these community investment conversations, each commissioner got to tell his or her views on what they wanted to see for the county that year. So perhaps, Commissioner Rogers, you inspired everybody to feel strongly one way or the other, you know, more so than the other commissioners. But I did note that, and even on the ones that they wanted no adjustments to, even the general government, the land use and transportation, and the culture, those numbers were very, very high, you know, relative to the others. And again, that had, you know, 38 respondents. It had good attendance at that meeting, but it was just, even though the numbers were a little more pronounced to the left or to the right, it's still following the same pattern that I saw, that we saw throughout. Next slide, please, which was that people in general, and yeah, now we're on the fourth slide. So people in general wanted to see, based on the discussions that we were having, they wanted to see a decrease in public safety and justice and an increase in housing, health, and human services, and usually an increase in culture, education, and recreation. And what I remember is that was only 4% of the total budget, but people were looking for, and maybe it was COVID driven, maybe something else, but they were looking for some recreational, cultural, and educational outlets. So on this last slide, I mean, you can see the numbers, 59% decrease in public safety and justice, 79% increase in housing and health and human services, and a 50% increase. And again, this session for the departed Commissioner Scouten had the most attendees and the most respondents. So that was good. Passions were high, good attendance, and a lot of people came out probably to see Commissioner Scouten, but that was good. Next slide, please. So this is just a summary. This is the aggregate polling across all 4 sessions. And what does it tell us? It tells us that folks tend to like where general government and land use and transportation are right now. And from the nature of some of the questions, partly because they had a lot of questions about them, but I think they got answers about those 2 sections. And so they were kind of satisfied with what they heard from the respective commissioners and staff. And then the other things I noticed that overall, 61% of the people responding thought that either a little bit or a lot that public safety and justice should decrease. 71% of the people responding thought that housing, health, and human services should increase, and 48% thought culture should increase. Excuse me, my computer just did something weird. Okay. So my conclusions, and the conclusions are, you're the commissioners and you get to draw conclusions. This is just another data point that you can use as you're weaving in all of your information. But I would notice, I'm looking at the red box on public safety and justice, and I'll call out that 45%. What I did want to say, that doesn't mean just because 45% of the respondents said you should greatly decrease public safety and justice. That does not mean that means defund the police, take all the money out of the sheriff's office and do this. That's not what that means. That just means that 45%, and when you add in the 16, that 61% of the people thought, well, we could do something different with our public safety and justice money. And most of them landed, if you look at the numbers, on shifting it into more housing, health, and human services. That's my general takeaway from that. And I would remind people that budgets are like kind of governmental physics. It's like for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You know, when you take it, it's Newton's third law. When you take it from someplace, it's got to come out from somewhere else. And I think the biggest thing that people got from these sessions was understanding that. And I think the sessions accomplished their goal as far as letting people be aware of that. Next slide, please. So, yeah, the value of the session. So we had a bunch of participants across the 4 sessions. And Elizabeth had shared with you the data limitations. We tried to tease out the unduplicated and the unique ones. We tried to make sure that we could identify by session. But one thing we did, this was our exit poll. So one thing that we did, and that's why that 86 number is a little low. Not everybody who attended responded to the exit poll. We said goodbye, told them we'd be sending them an exit poll. They got it. And thankfully, 86 people responded. But these are the questions we asked about feeling either more frustrated about the process, the budget and the budget process, more informed, more heard, more hopeful, or they felt that their participation made a difference. And my observation is that 4 of those are pretty positive. I was looking, if they were negative, they would feel much more frustrated. But all the other ones, being informed, being heard, being hopeful, and understanding that their participation made a difference, those were kind of positive outcomes for me. Next slide, please. And as a result of that, and I will note one thing on this slide. bollocksed up the dates here. So the date of November 12th is actually Willie. I reversed everything. So, and then November 16th was Harrington and Chair Harrington and Commissioner Treese and so on. Commissioner Rogers was on the 18th and Commissioner Scouten was on the 21st. But aside from that, the data is accurate. And so these were the answers to the questions that we asked. Who felt more frustrated? Who felt more informed, and so on. And the only observation I would have there is that, to me, again, only I did the percentages. I think it's 25% in the November 12th session, 26% in the November 16th session, 9% in the November 18th session, and 24% in the November 21st session. Those were the ones who felt more frustrated about the process, which means when you flip the numbers, everybody else felt either more informed, more heard, more hopeful, or their participation made a difference. And the other thing I would note that even though I think Ms. Mazara Myers earlier had said that, you know, we should cut down the budget 101, people thought it went a little long. That was some of the feedback, but by the votes from all the people that took the exit poll, that was the strongest answer for all 4 sessions. I feel more informed about the budget and the budget process. So that's a key takeaway for me, that despite the fact that, well, yeah, it went a little long, but the budget is a complex thing, you know, but the people that attended said they felt, that answered and attended and responded, said they felt more informed about the budget and the budget process. So that was another key takeaway for me. Next slide, please. And this is just a different way of chopping it up. But when I add those 4 positive answers together that I identified before, 78% of the people that responded said, I felt more informed, more heard, more hopeful, and that my attendance made a difference. So if, as an outsider, I had to judge, I would say that was a successful foray into your community, most especially because you had so much more participation than the last year. So you have a bigger sample size, you have more people, and a lot of non-duplicative, so a lot of unique attendees. Next slide, please. And, oh, we had noted early on, but we had received actually the total number of questions we received either in the chat, in the Q&A, or I don't think they could ask on YouTube, but from the sources we had where people could ask questions, we had 250 total questions. But when my team went through, they got down to 141 questions. They got rid of all the duplicated questions and the repeat questions, the same questions. And so there were about 141 unique questions asked, and it went over the range of these different areas. So again, they did have, most of their questions were about general government because a lot goes into that bucket, but they asked questions across the board. So there was no one type of resident that attended this meeting, no one resident that came, even the ones that came with an agenda, and I suspect there are many, there were 5 different buckets of agendas. So that is a good representation of your community. So that is actually my last slide, and I will throw it back to Elizabeth. But again, thank you for letting me chat at you today, not necessarily with you, but thank you. And Elizabeth, I'm passing it back to you.
Great, thank you so much, Marcus. So this is another slide that's been updated from the original with the correct link on the website for the public as well. I just wanted to give you a sample cut little snippet from the page. I want to thank the staff who put so much work into cleaning up the questions. We went through all 250, categorized them by areas, and then picked out the frequently asked questions and provided the question with the answer in a dropdown. So now on the community investment conversation page, you can find the FAQ. And I'm wondering if the chair has a question. No. Kevin, I think the chair is muted.
Chair Harrington.
Yep.
There you
My
go.
screens were just doing something weird, so I had to catch up with them. I just went back and downloaded the packet, and so I just had a puzzled look because this slide looks different than what I found in the packet. Sorry,
Yes.
didn't mean to.
No, that's
sidetrack
okay.
us.
That's
Sorry.
okay. And I will say that just as we saw on slide 15, we've continued to find little fixes that we want to make before we republish the packet. So there may be slight changes again. But thank you. Yes, this is one of those slides. So next slide, please. And this is from the report. Again, it was just more samples of the questions that were provided by the public. You know, this is one of the places where I want to call out Latricia Tillman. She was on the back end of this project with me. There were a lot of questions that I would pass to her. She would raise up verbally questions that I would answer or text to subject matter experts within the staff to get answers to. So it was a well-oiled machine that was working very quickly to get these questions answered. And while there was 141 unique questions, we did get most of the 250 answered in real time. So it was a fast-moving couple of hours there. Next slide. So I want to take just a moment to remind you of this graphic. Back in October, when we were talking about what this process would look like for you and the CIO's office, we were reminding you that in Q4, we would do the actual conversations, provide the program. Q1 and Q2, we'd come back to it with a report and then turn it over to the board and the CIO to have a conversation about priorities and initiatives, provide direction for the budget. Q3 and Q4, there'll be budget process assessment with the CIO, the chief financial officer, and the CEIO, along with the board, thinking about what the process actually looks like, and then the beyond. And I know that Administrator Angie has been working on the timeline for strategic planning. I assume budget process is a piece of that. So I will stick with this graphic because that's what we started with, but next time you see it, it might look different with different dates. Next slide. So, you know, I don't typically do this on presentations, but really it was yeoman's work to get this program together. We moved very, very quickly, both with the technology, with lessons learned from the August program we had executed, as well as the program for 2019, updating it and putting it into an online format. So thank you so much to community engagement. Highland is amazing. Amanda, Latricia, your whole team, Marcus did a tremendous job. I know you had translators on your team that were there. You guys just all were tremendous. Philip and Julie from the communications team as well did great work. I know there's other folks there that helped out with graphics, I know from our admin team did great work. All of the on-call county staff who responded to my text messages while we were doing questions, while they were eating dinner. I really appreciate all of you helping out. And of course, the Coalition of Communities of Color and your partners at the Racial Equity Collaborative. You guys have been terrific partners. I think the report really brought forward a great view of what this program is. And I think helps the board get, like I said, that insight into that snapshot of community need. I think the final thing I'd like to say is just some staff thinking on why the board should do this program again. I think it's important to continue this engagement with the public. It's the second year the public is now used to being asked what they think, and they're used to giving feedback. And I think the more we give them that practice, the better they're going to get at that. I think there's opportunity to refine the tools. I think there's a real opportunity for the board to ask staff what kind of data they do want. You know, we were limited because of the online tools that we had, and they were blunt instruments, but I think, again, we got that snapshot. But if the board wants more or different information or data or whatever it might be, this is a real opportunity to get that. And of course, all of that to say, this program is an opportunity to better understand community need as you get ready to give direction to the staff around budget. So I think from a staff perspective, it felt like a worthwhile effort, and I hope that the board sees it as the same and decides to continue the program. So next slide, and Marcus and I are here and ready for any questions.
Thank you, Elizabeth and Marcus. Board members, questions, comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Rogers.
Yeah, thank you. I too agree that staff did a great work, but I want to talk about Marcus for a moment, and I'm not going to let his head get too big here, but frankly, having been involved with not only this state, but a lot bigger arenas as well on these kinds of activities, it's important that the tone be established. I mean, without the tone being established, these are nothing but meetings for people who have some interest and others who are just disgruntled. And I thought you did an excellent job of laying the groundwork for how questions would be asked, the decorum, and making it a civil meeting. So even though, as you mentioned, my particular session, there was a bit of animation, and I appreciated that. The discourse is always good, but I do want to compliment you on that. And so as far as having meetings in the future, just from my perspective, and others will have their different perspective, unless you can replicate some sort of a like kind of meeting, it wouldn't be worth the time, frankly. But if you have a situation where people can talk freely and civilly to each other and understand that not all perspectives are going to be the same, then I think it's very worthwhile. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. And I hope you heard that big compliment there, Mr. Mundy.
Oh, I heard it. I was afraid to speak though, but thank you very much, Commissioner. And I think all the commissioners set the tone too. It was people wanted to hear from their commissioners, and so they wanted to actually see you all show up. You all showed up. You answered their questions, and I think that went a far way to keeping it civil. People got their questions answered, which this is an unusual form. Not all counties do this, so that was appreciated.
And multiple commissioners showed up, or all the commissioners showed up to multiple sessions, yes, not just for his or her session that he or she was hosting. So
can I add one more comment, and that is that it was a little awkward at the beginning of the meetings. I was there, but off screen and not allowed to participate. And then on screen one of the meetings, and I couldn't participate. So whatever form that you do, Elizabeth and staff, it seems like we ought to have some consistency on that. So,
Madam Chair, if I may answer that for Commissioner Rogers. Commissioner Rogers, that was my call. You still learning the public meeting protocol of the quorum, so that was my call. So, but we got straight from Alan, so we're all good going forward.
So I think he was sorry in making that mistake, but we're all set now. Yeah. Other commissioners, questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd like to add that, Marcus, you did a fabulous job. There's no question. And I always appreciate your facilitation skills and the way you set the table. So thank you for that. But at the same time, I think one of my concerns as we move forward and as we look at these potential town halls is that we all have a clear understanding of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what is the end result going to be. So and we've done that. We did a good job here, but I want to make sure that we're doing that into the future. The other shout out I want to make is, man, I don't see how Elizabeth, staff, Latricia got through all of those questions. It was fast and furious and sometimes volatile. So I appreciated your work in keeping the tone positive, because you did a whole lot in the chats and in the Q&A about how the questions were answered. So the team did a great job there. Thank you. And it was interesting how different meetings just had a very different tone and a different flavor. But it was well worth the time, and I appreciated everybody's work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, I'd like to echo some of that. Marcus, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pile on anymore. So you've had enough. But I do want to say, from my standpoint, what you do bring is the coalition of color community And that's something that I think certainly has been one of our priorities, is how do we engage that community, and certainly in the decision making and everything else. And that's something we've never had before, and you bring that. And so I'll give you credit for that, but I also know that there's just there's a lot of information and certainly a lot more collaboration we can do. So stay tuned. We've got more work for you, I think.
Thank you, sir.
In regards to the comments about the budget, this is, as we all know, is a complex area of our jobs. And when you're talking about $1 billion+ and all of the special funds we have and the revenue sources and all of those things, it is hard to really grind that down into a simple snapshot. And I think we are working our way to getting there. One of the things that the city of Hillsborough did several years ago is they put out a document called the Budget in Brief. And it's a pretty brief document. It's all color. It's all very well done. Now, remembering that, our budget is probably 2 or 3 times more complex and certainly 2 or 3 times larger. So we might have a little trouble putting it into that small of a book. But anyway, it's an idea of how to try and snapshot the budget into something that's a little bit more eye-pleasing and I think easier to comprehend. And then lastly is a question, I guess, for you, Marcus, but maybe the group. When we see, and I'm looking at slide number 13. Now, this is the old package, so I just wanted, slide 13 is the overview of all of the responses, aggregate polling across all 4 sessions. And it shows under public safety that we're still at 61% says that we should decrease. Right. And I just need to know, how should we begin responding to this? They also, we should probably respond to the ones that say, what is it, 71%, 44 and 30, about 71% say we should increase health and human services. Shouldn't we be trying to put out some sort of a response to those kinds of survey results, even though to me it's a very, very small community? We invited them to the party. They told us. How do we respond back to that?
Well, I'm just a resident of Washington County, but I have an opinion on that. And that is, to me, I would match up these raw stats with a lot of the nuance of the questions that we both heard and that you all answered, but that they also put in the chats, because some were on the far, far end of the spectrum, defund everything and blow it up. But most were somewhere left or right, depending on which issue they were talking about. But on this one, maybe left of center, saying, you know what, we want you to decrease this. Some had suggestions of what they wanted decreased. Some had suggestions of what they wanted uplifted on the, social services side, the health and human services side. So I would try to match up the raw percentages with some of the nuance that they put in their conversations and their questions to you. And that should give you a bit more flavor of where they were headed with their remarks. Because I heard very few people there go to the absolute defund with no, full stop. I heard very little of that. What I heard a lot of was in between, about, can you take some money away? Can you do it through attrition? Can you do it in a smart way and ease over to something that's a better balance for our community? Now, technically, how do you do that as commissioners? I don't know yet, but that's what I heard. And I would try to marry those two, both the raw data that we're looking at and then some of the nuance of their conversations that they gave you.
Commissioner Fye, I realized that you weren't on the commission when we went through this community engagement conversation series. But I think you might have, I can't even remember if you had the opportunity to attend any of them. You may have heard about them from constituents along the way, But now you are a member of the commission and you've had the opportunity to experience this report, the presentation today. Are there any thoughts that you would like to share with us?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think, I'm not sure, don't quote, nobody should quote me on this, but I think I went to one conversation. I'm not sure if it was a community investment conversation or it was something else. But I did go to one of the conversations. So obviously I don't have a lot to contribute since I wasn't previewed to those conversations and listen in and really hear what the constituents have to say. I do agree with Commissioner Willie saying, you know, responding to some of the high numbers calling for either increase or decrease. I really do think that's a good point. And it also does reflect, you know, respect for the constituents and their feedback, that we've heard them and that we're, you know, entertaining ideas and suggestions and pathway forward. I do have a clarifying question, and if this is covered in the you know, when the presentation was happening, I apologize, Marcus and Elizabeth, but my question is, you know, public safety and the feedback that you've got and how we came to that number of calling for decrease. I'm wondering, and you know, I will say that public safety in Washington County is not really like monolith. You know, we have Beaverton Police, Tiger Police. So, and then we have our sheriff's office. Was that clarification made to the constituents to give them feedback? And then also, was there an opportunity for people to review either, you know, a snapshot, high level, 50,000 foot level overview of what that budget around public safety looks like, both in Washington County or different departments, and that so people could see what we're talking about and where the monies are spending, and then they can specifically say, I really think, you know, we should decrease and this is where we should funnel. Was there that level of conversation and feedback in this presentation? And then also the clarification.
Commissioner Fye, thank you for the question. And the answer is yes. There was a participant guide that was provided in advance, well, for some in advance and for some not in advance of the conversations. Continuous improvement, right? Continuous improvement. And that is available on the website, and I'll make sure you have that link. As well, Jack Liang, our CFO, did a budget 101 for part of the time. And in that was a breakdown of the different functional areas. We were very sure within public safety to ensure folks understood that it wasn't just patrol and jails, that there's other programs within public safety. We didn't compare it to other agencies in the area. We focused just on Washington County. But I'll share that with you right after this, and you can take a look and see if that's the kind of information you were looking for.
And to your point, there's not always a distinction with the public with respect to public safety. If it's a Beaverton police officer stopping them, or a county sheriff, or someone from Tiger, they're just stopped by the police. So that question is a good question about the differences between, but as Elizabeth said, everything I noticed was all county specific, but CFO Liang did a very good job breaking that down. So.
Thank you. I think for me, when I was running, the reason why I asked that question was, I know when I was running, we had a public safety levy on the ballot, and I was running for district-wide. There's cities, and then I have unincorporated areas of Washington County. And, you know, I had to make that distinction of when people ask, should I vote for this? Because people in unincorporated areas, you know, I guess we had a stake in the game of passing that public safety, because our own safety law enforcement is just a sheriff versus the people who are in the city. You know, they have to pay that levy and then they have to invest in the Beaverton or Hillsborough or Tigard, which to complicate more, even Tigard had their own public safety levy. So that's why I asked people where I know people are confused and not knowing. And I think they're looking into government officials and the government to make that clarification so that we help them make the right decision and then that we involve them and engage them meaningfully rather than, we ask the question and we walk away and we got what we wanted, but did they get what they wanted out of that?
Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you. So I'll go next. I want to start by expressing my deep appreciation for all of the work that went into setting up the second year of budget engagement with our community to include, better practices. Our first year was the first time we ever did it. And our second year was doing it all virtually and having advanced material in the form of the program guide that, as Elizabeth already mentioned, there was a glitch in getting that out early. We had intended for it to be available before the meeting, in advance, both in English and in Spanish, to folks who planned on attending, and then that didn't happen, right? The logistics just had some glitches there. That, I think, is the only clear change for improvement that I just wanted to make sure I highlighted. But some of what I am grateful for has been mentioned here. How the Q&A session was open, welcoming, and all of the text responses were positive. Incredible tone, incredible positive phraseology. Yes, as observed, it was very interactive. It was in real time response in real time. It took an intensive effort on behalf of the staff to do that. Hair raising, as Commissioner Treese is pointing out. But thank you, team. You managed all of that. And it's because of your excellence that we were all able to shine through this program. The effort that Jack and the other members of the team put in to develop that program guide, review the information, get it translated and available. Thank you, team. For those community members who got it either after their initial participation in the meeting or promptly in, we heard remarks that helped them get their arms around this $1.4 billion budget, as Commissioner Willie mentioned. We also know that after the August listening sessions around body-worn cameras and after our community investment conversations, we had the benefit in our Board of Commissioners meeting in, I think it was December 15th on body-worn cameras, could have been the 22nd, one of those two. We heard from Rebecca from our, anyway, maybe it wasn't Rebecca. It was about the mental health response teams and other mental health services through Washington County. Well, gee, that provided more background information as well that could be very helpful, appreciated by the members of our community who attended the community investment conversation. So I want to say a couple more comments. It was really nice to have more community engagement. I liked, Elizabeth, how you put it here in this meeting about our community members are getting more comfortable with our asking them what they think and to ask them what information might they want. And I think that's a really good sign on our part that we continue to be dedicated to do that and work not just on behalf of our community, but with our community. I also appreciated how there was a mixture of dates and time of day. And gosh darn it, team, you made it fun, right? And credit to our community members. They made it fun. I want to do this again. Both Commissioner Willie and Commissioner Fye asked some good questions about public safety here. One of the things that we understood going into the conversation series that we saw during the conversation series because of the presentations, the public safety category is large. It isn't just the sheriff and law enforcement in jail. It has community corrections, it has juvenile justice, it has the district attorney, domestic violence support, court support, you know, specialty court kind of thing. So it's a big category. Now, one of the things that I heard here in our discussion today is the idea of response, particularly as both Commissioner Willie and Commissioner Fye mentioned in regards to the instant polling survey sample that was highlighted here about reducing public safety investments and increasing in HHS. And just as an idea, Elizabeth, you'll have to remind me what logistics we might have, whether we have emails from folks or not. I know we always have available to us posting information, but it may be that we collectively as a board, that all 5 of us sign a letter of appreciation, drawing attention to the fact that we have the report and this presentation today, that we're looking forward to taking this useful feedback and including it in our thinking as we work with CAO Angie through our proposed budget and program of investments, not only this year, but also into future years. And to thank the community members for engaging with us and that we look forward to more.
That's certainly something we can put together.
Board members, do you think you might be interested in considering such a letter? And obviously such a letter would go before you for your inclusion before it's issued. But do you want to move forward with something like that? Okay, great, terrific.
I'd also like it, Chair. I'd like us to be able to use our website to do that, to use our technology, and obviously we're going to move ahead over the next few years to improve that website. And but I think we can do a lot better job communicating in that fashion as well. So yeah, I'd be in favor of that.
Yep, yeah, we can leverage it and continue to make advancements moving forward. Absolutely, awesome. Well, once again, thank you, Marcus. You helped us. You and your team continue to help us advance our capabilities, our engagement with all members of our community, and we look forward to continuing our experiences in this new year. So thank you again.
Chair Harrington, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. Your staff, as has been said many times, was great. They made it easy technically, and all my partners at the Washington County Rec were very, very instrumental. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Elizabeth and Marcus, do you have anything else in closing this topic for today?
I think we've got what we need.
Okay, well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Well, members, it's 2:48. We have a planned 15-minute break here. So why don't we come back at 3:05? Great. See you in a bit. computer clock says it's now 3:05, so we'll look forward to Commissioner Willie join. There he is. Thank you for giving us the view to your outside world. That's pretty, Commissioner Willie. So, all righty. Well, I'd like to welcome our supportive housing team for our next agenda item. So I'll turn it over to the team of Comey Calavar, Josh Kreitz, and Allie Jameson. And I'm not sure which of you is going to play MC here. But I know it's not me, so thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and the board. My name is Comey Calavar. I'm the housing director. Before we go into the presentation, I wanted to set up the conversation about the supportive housing services measure. As a reminder, we had a local implementation committee coordinated by CAO that arranged meetings during the summer and into the end of last year. The group met 11 times and had a diverse representation from throughout the community. Today, we are here to speak to the board for several key reasons. The first one, we want to understand that the board's preferences for engagement and for information as we move forward, we the housing team. The second reason, we want to give the board a high-level overview of the supportive housing services measure and how important it is to sync our timelines, taxing structures, and staff's overview by the many bodies of work that we need to take place going forward. It is also important that this is a 10-year measure and the implementation will be phased over time. So with that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Director Josh Kreitz and Program Manager Allie Jameson, who will get into the specifics and ask for your feedback as we move forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and Board. For the record, I'm Josh Kreitz, the Assistant Director of the Housing Department. I want to mention that there are a few adjustments to the presentation that were put in on Monday just to update some more information and timelines. So this is the second time we've had the opportunity to provide an update on the supported housing services measure. And as Comey just mentioned, we're going to be providing some high-level overviews and really want to focus in on the board's need for information and engagement. Much like the Metro bond, the Housing Department understands that this is an important and historic opportunity to equitably serve those most in need in Washington County. We're here to serve in partnership with the board and our community to ensure a successful implementation. With that, I want to hand it over to Allie, who's going to start our presentation. And if you could advance the slide, please.
Hi, Chair Harrington and board. My name is Allie Jameson, and we are happy to be talking with you again about the supportive housing services measure. Just to provide a quick overview of some of the background. So Metro Supportive Housing Services passed Measure 26210 by 58% of the voters. The aim of the measure is to provide services for as many as 5,000 people experiencing prolonged homelessness and as many as 10,000 households experiencing short-term homelessness or at risk of homelessness across the region. Metro held intensive, inclusive stakeholder process meetings to inform development of LIP requirements across the 3 jurisdictions of Washington, Clackamas, and Multnomah County. And the local implementation plan process has been outlined by Metro for all of the jurisdictions. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Allie. So this slide was added. We want to ensure that the board has some really good high-level information about the LIP implementation. So we want to ensure that we have this in here. So first things first, Comey alluded to this. The tax period is 10 years, and the tax period starts January 1st of 2021, and this measure runs through December 31st of 2030. At that point, then it would be, back up to the voters and on the ballot again for to be re-upped. Another thing that I wanted to add in here is I had an opportunity to talk with Metro just over the last couple of days, and we've had this conversation ongoing for the last couple of weeks. So what's the accountability look like for year 1? So in our conversations with Metro, really the accountability is going to be from July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2022. And what that's going to look like is that at some point in between July and October of 2022, that's when we'll have an annual report, and they'll be looking at outcome metrics and all of that information. Again, just as a caveat, this will all be hammered out in the intergovernmental agreement, our IGA, which we'll be working with Metro. Our county council will be doing that. But that's just an overview of where that's the best knowledge that we have at this point as far as accountability periods. Taxing structure. The program is funded by a 1% tax on taxable income of more than $125,000 for individuals and $200,000 for couples filing jointly, as well as a 1% tax on profits from businesses with gross receipts more than $5 million. The taxing entity is the City of Portland, administering this tax for Metro. And tax withholding is going to be phased in, with Metro informing the counties that the funding will be available by July 1st of 2021. The intergovernmental agreement, again, that County Council will be working with Metro on, will determine specifics on program management. Please advance the slide. So this, we thought it was really important to talk about timelines and processes, but also to kind of give some overview from Metro's perspective. So this slide, there's a few things on here that are a little bit outdated, but we thought that was really important to bring this to the board's attention, just from a Metro standpoint. This is 2020 and 2021. So if we look at program implementation, last summer, there's stakeholder advisory meetings that happened throughout the summer. There was a local, you can see here, September through January. It says local jurisdictions develop local implementation plans. Again, we've worked with Metro as well as Clackamas County, and this will extend into the spring. But right there in July and ongoing, you'll see first phase of supporting housing services program begins. On oversight and accountability, June through April, again, IGAs will be working with Metro, and our county council will take the lead on that for us on development and creation of the IGAs. As far as accountability, the oversight committee member selection process happened throughout the summer and fall last year. And now and ongoing, the oversight committee is appointed and will convene. And I just want to mention that yesterday, this oversight committee did convene, and they looked at Multnomah County's LIP. And I believe Chair Harrington, you were there, and we had housing staff there. It was instructive and informational, very interesting for all of us. Revenue collection. The tax systems were being established June through January. January, the tax became effective. We expect April and ongoing for the tax revenues to begin to be received. Please advance the slide deck.
Thanks, Josh. So to update folks on the current LIP work that's been happening to date, as Josh mentioned, between August and December of last year, there are 21 members representative of community leaders, community-based organization, and communities of color and people with lived experience who made up the LIP Advisory Committee. Between August and December, this LIP Advisory Committee met 11 times to lay the foundation for LIP development and developed a series of recommendations that we have carried forward to the current LIP Committee 2.0, just so that everyone can see what work has been done and carry that sense of pride that we all feel in Washington County for how many of us are really dedicated and committed to making sure all of our community members are cared for. Next slide, please. So the LIP Advisory Committee 2.0 has expanded to include 38 private nonprofit organizations and public entities across Washington County, and currently holds approximately 75 individuals on the committee. It's a very exciting time for all of us to be able to work together on looking at the LIP as the draft is developed and really getting some concrete documentation of feedback. Chair Harrington and Commissioner Fye are so welcome to be joining us as board liaisons, and I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback as we go along as well. Next slide, please. The the areas of work that the LIP committee is working on in terms of what is our focus for what kind of feedback we are seeking as Washington County and for our LIP. We're focusing on racial equity, community engagement, communication, training and onboarding for culturally specific providers. How are we designing our implementation plan to not only support our providers, but to help build upon existing capacity? We're also looking at planned investments and countywide geographical distribution of those investments. Next slide.
Thanks, Sally. The one thing that we really want to highlight today is that, as we go through this process, the LIP, the local implementation plan, it's a very important component of the overall implementation of this supportive housing services measure. But this is a complex implementation. It has multiple bodies of work, a lot of stakeholder engagement and board feedback that's going to be required. And staff, at a staff level, we envision this to be a multi-phased implementation. So as we talk about these phases, I just want to highlight that internal implementation at a staff level, it might not align with like taxing structure timelines and things of that nature. So it's how, oh, I'm sorry, Chair Harrington, please.
So I understand that. I really think that we're going to have to change these labels though. So before you do the overview of them, I think we really do need to change. So it's phase 0, phase 1, phase 2. So I'm hoping you'd be willing to present it that way. That's all.
Absolutely. That's helpful feedback and it'll be more clarifying. So phase 0, pre-implementation. So January through July, what is it going to take for Washington County to get ready so that we can actually house homeless individuals and families by July 1st? And we'll get into that in phase 0. Phase 1, implementation efficacy. Again, we're going to start housing individuals and families in July 1st and beyond. And so the ongoing capacity building, the housing of individuals and families, and evaluation building that will need to take place within that first year. Phase 2, that sustainable investment period, July 1st of 2022 and beyond. Next slide, please. So if we're looking at phase 0, this pre-implementation, what we want to highlight here is there's a lot of bodies of work that are going to have to take place. And I want everyone to be really level set on how much work this is going to be. And the housing department understand this, and our partners in Health and Human Services, the Office of Equity, Community Corrections, we're really working hard on a lot of different bodies of work. So first, local implementation plan. Again, we're going to be working on this throughout January through April. We'll hit on this in just a second, more in depth. Internal staffing capacity. This is a major implementation. We're building up a complete new system with major amounts of funding, and the taxpayers are looking at us to ensure that we can really do this effectively, efficiently, and transparently. And so ensuring that we have the right staffing structures in place to do that. Having an operational work plan in place so we can really lay out what is this process going to be in operationalizing this. We mentioned this earlier. We'll need to have the intergovernmental agreement, the IGA signed with Metro to begin implementing and receiving funding. The next part is obviously a really groundstone part of this, development of a long-term rental assistance program. We need to house individuals. We have to have a mechanism for housing people, rental assistance. So building that program out with our regional partners, and then also ensuring that we have service provider capacity building and technical support ready and available. Data and reporting. Obviously, it's going to be paramount that we have excellent data communications and reporting processes in place. So that's going to be another important part of building up this program. And then inclusive service provider procurement and contracting. We're going to need to have community-based organizations and culturally specific organizations that can really work with our houseless population and provide the services necessary to get individuals housed and keep them stably housed. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Josh. So the following dates is just a proposed timeline. We're going to be asking the board for what you think. Does this sound aggressive enough? Too aggressive? So first of all, we're looking at the LIP 2.0 meeting 5 times through from January through March. We met for the first time this past week on the 21st, and of course, today we're asking for your feedback and engagement preferences. Our next timeline milestone will be to be able to bring an LIP draft review and feedback back to you on February 23rd. By March 16th, we're aiming to be able to bring a second draft with amendments to you for your review and to hear what your feedback is. Between March 18th and April 1st, we intend to have a 2-week community input period so that we can really look at what community members, what they think about the draft, who may not be part of the LIP committee, but have just as important feedback. From April 4th, we're hoping to have board approval of the LIP so that we can submit to Metro for review by April 7th. April 30th would be when the Metro Oversight Committee would meet for approval and review of this draft. And so one of the reasons why we need to get it in earlier in April is to make sure that Regional Oversight Committee members have enough time to review it and so that Metro can give us any pointers as well. Next slide. So when we get to July, there's still a lot of work to do. So at a high level, this phase will include the deployment of housing program dollars to house homeless individuals and families. So this phase will include oversight of the LIP implementation efforts and program operations. So now that we have the plan, how are we implementing it and how do we know whether or not it's working, right? So we're also looking at implementation support and contract monitoring. Continued infrastructure and capacity building of CBOs and culturally specific organizations is another area that is critical for this initiative to advance. We need to make sure that not only do our CBOs have the supports that they need to provide culturally responsive services, but we need to ensure that our culturally specific providers have the support they need to build up in order to continue the good work they do and expand. We're also looking at ensuring workforce development and job training services as part of our broader strategy, continued investment planning in alignment with the LIP. We're looking at continued engagement with implementing jurisdictions on regional planning efforts. So the partnership with jurisdictions and our regional partners is a really big piece of getting this plan to succeed. And then finally, we're going to look at refining data systems and reporting structures during this phase. Next slide.
So as we talk about this phase 2, sustainable investments, we also recognize, just because we get to June 30th of 2022, this is a 10-year program. So there's going to be a lot of work to do. So we understand that there's going to be continued community engagement and oversight of our operations and programs. There's going to be engagement and continued development of our CBOs and culturally specific organizations. We're going to continue to work on regional discussions about investment strategies, including workforce development. And again, those reporting and data evaluation enhancements. But again, this is a 10-year measure. So it means there's going to be a lot more engagement with the board, with our community, with Metro, and with our jurisdictional partners. So it's just going to be a lot of continued engagement as we build, we learn, and we continue to improve. And I think that's the strategy. The Metro Bond has taught us a lot in the housing department about rolling out major initiatives. And this really is a major initiative that's going to be going on for the next decade. And we're really going to be looking at continuous improvement, community engagement, and transparency as paramount to all of this work. Next slide, please. So we have some key questions for the board. There's one missing on here, and I really want to make sure that we hit on. That's the way that we engage with our jurisdictional partners in cities. So it's something that I want to ensure that we hit on. But before I start asking questions here, I want to maybe pause and ask the board, how do you want us to ask these questions? One at a time or kind of go through the list? What would be most helpful?
Often we find it helpful to go around the room by commissioners, and then with the multiple questions, and then come back to a summary of, from that collection, what does it seem to tell us? Might that work?
Yeah. So just to be clear, do you want me to start off just going through all of the questions and then do a round robin, or am I off on that?
Yeah, commissioners, here, why don't I change the size of my screen here? Okay. Commissioners, would you like to take each question individually and then around the room? Or would you like to have each commissioner, all 3 questions and around the room? Do them 3 individual? No, do them together. Okay, okay. I think I'm reading the hand signals right. We're gonna do each commissioner, all 3 questions. Okay, who wants to go first? Otherwise, I'll go first, so. Everybody's on mute, so I think they're telling me they want me to go first. Am I interpreting that right? Okay, happy to do so. Well, first, I'm going to start with question 0. How's that? Just comments. I want you to know that I have confidence in you. You're working as a team, and I know you're collaborating with the folks in Clackamas County, as well as the folks from the Joint Office of Homeless Services with the City of Portland and Multnomah County, and that you're also collaborating with the staff at Metro. So thank you very much. I have learned a great deal over these last couple of weeks. I think one of the resources that helped me significantly is the Metro Supportive Housing Services Program Work Plan. And you can see my tags of pages, reference pages for myself. And so now I really feel anchored in the expectations from Metro. Which I think is important and was certainly important for me to understand as the Washington County delegate to the Metro Supportive Housing Services Oversight Committee. But I learned just yesterday in talking with Councilor Lewis, who is the Metro Council delegate to that Oversight Committee, that they were very careful to word this as a work plan. They want to make sure that we know this is not another 10-year plan to end homelessness. Just as you talked about here in your presentation, the voters approved this finance program to lead to specific outcomes, and we need to be successful with that. So another couple of comments here. I understand why you call it LIP 2.0. But since that meeting, I would like to suggest you refer to it as LIP 2021, because I don't know how many different revisions there will be over the years for new LIPs and whatever form committees will take. So that's why, and I don't want us to get caught up with too many numbers, right? Metro's already proposing a phase 1, a phase 2, a phase 3. And so to the degree that we can keep track of, okay, this is where we're going this year, phase 1, let's not introduce too many numbers. Though I do understand how through the development and adoption of LIP 2021, you will have to have some kind of version numbering or date references to at least help me not get confused by what version am I looking at today? So, so a couple of other things. I know you've impressed upon me, both through the Washington County Committee and through this presentation and what was in the packet, that the Washington County capacity and the nature of the Washington County program will be changing, right? The Washington County team members and the departments, through the housing department, through community development, through health and family services, and more throughout the agency, have valid experience in supporting the houseless community here in Washington County. And you've knocked my socks off with how you have all pivoted and met the challenge of our community needs in 2020 with the global pandemic. I think we're going to have to be a little intentional with our phrasing in order to communicate, or more importantly, impress upon both our community as well as the Metro SHS, Supportive Housing Services Oversight Committee, that there is a significant scaling of the Washington County program. Thanks to this funding, right? Of course. But I think we need to impress upon them, and that our degree of change is different than what Portland and Multnomah County will experience, given that they have a different track record and different demands on them. I've been assured that we will get a different set of questions than Multnomah County got via the Oversight Committee meeting just yesterday. And I think we should expect that through our LIP, they're going to be interested in hearing a little bit more from you about that regional collaboration that you're doing. Okay, now to your questions. LIP timeline. Does the proposed timeline allow the board enough time and opportunity for updates and engagement in relation to the drafting and eventual approval of the LIP? I appreciate how you updated this from the version that was in the packet on Friday. I get it. I see the improvement. I hope that I do a good job March 16th in understanding that version. I hope 2 weeks will be a sufficient input time period. Melissa DeLizer from our LUT team assured me with the short-term rental proposal that when we have a virtual open house, that they usually get the most responses within a short period of time. So I can see where 2 weeks will work, especially if we've done a good job of letting the community know what's coming. So I think it will work is really what I'm trying to communicate here. But I also appreciate the improvement that you made. Engagement. How would the board like to engage in the following areas? Well, it's one reason why I wanted to play an active role for the board on our committee. It's not that I'm trying to decide that the need goes in which buckets, right? How much money goes in which, but that I understand why through your work in understanding the data. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. For my colleagues, what the implementation team knows is I spent Sunday afternoon reading the Multnomah County LIP. All 250 plus pages of it. It's a big document, but wow, was it useful information? More tags. I shared my notes with our team already, so they know from me what data information I found really useful and so forth. Once again, I feel confident that our team will be painting a picture of this is what we have known about our community, this is what we've been able to deliver, and here's what we're striving to do now based upon community need. And through the work you're doing with our partners, with the LIP committee, you're going to advance a recommendation. With our best knowledge, here is where we think we should be spending that money. So I see myself as a consumer of your work. On the racial equity work, what I'm looking for there is that you're able to get a level of engagement that informs the plan, right? What we know from the questions, you received the same questions I did from the Metro Oversight Committee. So we know what thirst they want. Though I've been assured that their expectations of us will be a little bit different than what the Multnomah County folks did. Anyway, and so I think you've received some feedback from me on that. On the overall engagement, what you're proposing here fits me to a T. I might need a briefing to go over questions. So I think I have a track record of trying to at least write my questions down and scan my handwritten questions to you so that we can then get together. Beyond that, I think what you have here is perfect for me. And you've scheduled work session time here for us as a board so we can hear one another's questions. So the only question I have is, I think for your proposal for February 23rd and March 16th, maybe more so for the first one, the 23rd. I want to make sure, I think you might be scheduling 45 minutes. And I'm thinking that maybe if we use it as an opportunity for us as the board to learn from one another's questions, that we might need more time in that one. That's all. Oh, was I did all three questions. Whew.
Chair Harrington,
I have nothing more to add.
Chair Harrington, I did have one more question that didn't make this, and that's just how you would like us to, or think about engaging with our jurisdictional partners, elected officials. We obviously are engaging with our peers within our city management and departments.
Yeah.
How we engage with our jurisdictional partners at the elected level.
Thank you for reminding me of that. So unlike we had team experience with the affordable housing bond, right? And you guys you remember that because you were part of that. Now, Allie, I know you joined us afterwards, but Comey and Josh and others, Shannon, went out. My recollection of this is they went and met with city councilors and said, this is what we're planning to do, to see if they had any other feedback. Now, in this case, we're not building buildings, right? But they know homelessness is a problem in all communities, right? And they're interested, and many of them are investing their city resources as well. So I encourage you to go out and meet with the city councils. And, I'm hopeful that in your timeline that between February 23rd and April 1st, that you can fit those in. And please let the board members know how we can help you with that, even if it's just an intro or merely to sit there and listen. But this is where, once again, I have confidence in you. I know you know how to do this. Any other questions that I was supposed to answer? Okay, so you've heard from 1 of 5. Who's next?
I'll jump in. So, Josh, you've asked the 3 questions, and I will be brief, I think, on how those are, but I do have a number of other questions that are not on your list. So I will wait until you've gone through the commissioners, and I'd like to circle back on this. Or maybe it would be better if I just wrote them down and you and I would have a short meeting about that. So I'll let you decide that, okay? The LIP timeline, again, there's a lot of work to be done, as you've indicated in this. There's a lot of bases you've got to touch. I'm going to leave that up to you. I don't know if the April 7 is a hard deadline because Metro has to have it by April 25th or the 30th or whatever that is. But, you know, obviously, you guys know what that will entail. And so that works just fine with me. Again, the communication with us as commissioners is going to be critical in that, as there are some specific things that I have concerns about and want to make sure that we address those. So the LIP timeline is fine with me if it's fine with you.
Commissioner Willie, I'm going to push back on you a little bit here. This is the forum. Well, we have the opportunity for detailed questions with our staff. Really, this is the forum for sharing what your general questions are, so that it's all out in the open. So, you know,
well, I was gonna bring those in after I answered the 3 questions, then allow the other commissioners to weigh in on the 3 questions, and then I was asking Josh to come back around and we'll have that conversation. How would the board like to engage in the following implementation areas? I think they're all critical. I think, again, we as a commission are going to want to be, at least from my standpoint, as engaged as we need to be without being cumbersome to the process and to the staff. And so just keep us informed of that. I think these are planned investments, the racial equity work, the geographical dispersion. And maybe I'll ask you about that. I mean, the first 2 bullet points to me are automatics, very, very critical, important things. When you say geographical dispersion of investments countywide, I have pulled up Appendix A that is in Comey's information, I believe, later on in this. And I consider that to be a pretty critical document because this is Metro's LIP requirements. And since they generally are a little heavy-handed on what goes into the LIP, I would like to, you know, have a conversation about those and what that actually means. So when we see a geographical disbursement of investments countywide, I don't think that's a problem. This document, however, says geographical disbursements, jurisdictional boundary, and the Metro jurisdictional boundary. So it's just not countywide. We're talking about region-wide, and that
it's a region-wide tax. That's why.
Well, I understand it's a region-wide tax, but I just want to know that we can spend our allocation in our county, that there isn't they don't step back and look at the big picture and say, well, actually, we need to move some of this money from over here to over there because of something to meet the Metro jurisdictional boundary guidelines. So that's a question that Josh can maybe answer at a different time. I
Well, the
don't know.
voters approved a measure for making these investments within the Metropolitan Service District boundary and
I
not
agree.
in Banks, Gaston, and North Plains. That's what the voters approved. That's what the measure.
I get that part.
Okay, okay. The Metro measure that the Metro Council referred to the voters does use the phrase geographic equity of services.
Okay, well, and we can certainly accomplish that. Again, I want it to be Washington County gets to spend their money in Washington County.
Yep.
And then overall engagement, again, you guys do a great job of keeping us up to speed. And certainly, you know, if we refer back to the affordable housing monies and those projects, Comey and the team have done a great job of keeping us up to speed on how that money is being spent in those projects. So this is just an expectation that we have. Maybe you have helped set that expectation, but certainly we want to continue that. So yeah, how this money is spent and all those kinds of projects are critical parts of it. So yes, okay. So I'll stop there before I get into my questions, and because I want the other commissioners to have time to address the three, and then maybe if we have time, we can come back around. If not, I can distribute this to the commission and to you, and then we can have other conversation.
So the fourth question that Josh has for us that wasn't written down per se was the jurisdictional one. Do you have feedback about how it might be helpful to engage with at least the cities in District 4, let alone all the cities within the Washington County and the Metro Service District?
Well, yeah, I do, because, you know, again, we go back to the geographical dispersal of investments countywide. We're going to need to include all of those cities within that service district. And so I would say yes. So I think I'm done here.
Commissioner Treese, Rogers, or Fye, any responses you have for those four questions?
I'll go ahead, and I'm echoing what Commissioner Willie and the chair said. First of all, I have a lot of faith in you guys, and you're doing good work, and I know that I get the information from you. So I'm just going to kind of tick off the things that are important to me. I would just like to make sure that we are informed about, in number 2, the racial equity work is really important to me. So just that be known, not that the other 2 aren't. But the other thing is that as we're looking at, and I'm sure the other commissioners feel this way as well as Chair Harrington, it's interesting to know what's happening in your district as well, so that you can just be aware and have that type of information. Chair Harrington knows all of them, and not that I won't know all of them, but it's particularly interesting for me in talking with my constituents about what may or may not be happening in District 2. As far as the overall engagement, like I said, I'm not concerned about that at all. So I've got faith, and I'm really pleased that the chair is working on this, and that Commissioner Fye is also engaged. So I think, you know, we've got good coverage here. So thank you. And the jurisdictional piece, Catherine, is that what you were going to ask me? I'm comfortable with just getting the information to me, and I'll raise questions as we go along if I have them.
Well, and the other thing that you reminded me of, Commissioner Treese, you and Commissioner Fye, your 2 districts make up a majority of the Beaverton School District.
Right.
And the Beaverton School District has acknowledged and been very mindful of the fact that as the 2nd largest school district in the state, they seem to have the largest known population of homeless students. And so I think that's an area that you 2 may get more pressures and questions about that than others. And also that may be an area where the Washington County LIP may need to provide a little bit more information than what I saw with the Multnomah County one.
That's absolutely right. So, and they do have the highest percentage of unhoused students. So,
do you think that the team should engage or let the Beaverton School District know? Well, maybe the school district board members might want to know after the LIP 2021 is defined and adopted. They may not need to be engaged on the front end. Think about that, I guess is all I'm saying.
Because I'm thinking that I know people who are very active and may want to be engaged on the front end and on the staff as well as the school board. So anyway, but I thank you for bringing that up. You're absolutely right that the Beaverton School District is a key piece of this as well. And Nafisa, Commissioner Fye, I'm happy to work together on this.
Commissioner Fye, Commissioner Rogers?
I don't know who unmuted first, but I guess it doesn't matter. As far as the 3 or now 4 questions, I don't take any different approach than the others have taken. Is it too quick? The timeline, that's yet to be seen. I don't think it will be, but these things always take a bit more time. What I'm more interested in, because I have confidence in our 2 representatives from the board, as well as what the staff will do, is in the administrative processes. And nobody but myself probably has a lot of interest in how those work, but there's a lot of taxing issues in there that I particularly have an interest in and would be interested in hear our approach from everything from what are we paying for this administrative function from the city of Portland to, I assume that you think you can get some sort of taxing records from the Department of Revenue. I know that TriMet never has been able to. So I don't know how we have jurisdiction over Department of Revenue or access if other jurisdictions can. So there's a lot of little technical issues, and where taxes, where income is earned, and can someone simply switch their domicile address to, their beach or Central Oregon property, and there's a lot of little technical issues, tax issues I have. But, so that's a different story, different issue, but that's what I'm interested in.
Well, I don't expect our team to handle all those questions, but I think they can put you in touch with a contact at Metro for you to follow up with directly.
Perfect.
Yeah, and there's been some really great presentations by Metro on this recently, so we can definitely make those contacts.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fye, what do you think? What do you need on these 4 areas?
I would say number 1, I think I'm fine with the proposed timeline. I think as the newest commissioner, I'm not sure. And then also as the board liaison for the committee, I'm sure there's a lot of thought and process that was put in to come up with these timelines. So I trust if you're saying you can adhere to these timelines, I trust your judgment, and it works for me as well. And then in terms of engagement, I'm assuming, I probably shouldn't, but I'm assuming being part of that committee, I'll probably be a little bit more engaged and privy to some of the community level conversations. So I'm hoping to address my catching up that I need to do in that committee. I am interested in the last one, the geographic piece, because when I was having conversations with at forums or with constituents, a lot of people were concerned that Washington County wasn't gonna get what we were worth sort of from this investment. And I think unfortunately I've had the question after I had my briefing with Comey and the team, how we came out, like how the percentage, and then within that percentage, how did we get that percentage? What was the reasoning behind? And then also, how are we gonna, within Washington County, how we're gonna disperse the percentage of the revenue that's allocated to Washington County? How is it gonna be dispersed? So I'm really, as well as Commissioner Willie, interested in that geographic investment piece. And as well as the other bullet points that's highlighted. And then overall engagement, I think email is fine with me. I'll try to make it less time consuming for you as well. So if I have questions, I feel comfortable emailing to you and sending. And then if it's a question that can wait, I'll definitely address it at the committee level meeting or send it to you, Ali, Comey, or Josh. And then the last one, both Commissioner Treese and Chair Harrington talked about Beaverton. I like to see us engaged with the Beaverton City and City Hall and the mayor there, and as well as the school board. I think also in my district is an opportunity at the legislative level, if we see an opportunity to connect to that, to engage our legislative, especially for my district. I'll speak for my district, District 1. We have a newly elected state representative who have tons of experience in housing, and especially this area, Winsbay Campos. So I think if there's an opportunity, if we wanted to, really involve and make it countywide, and so that they can take that conversation at the legislative level, and also make sure we get our money worth for housing at the state level. And then also we have a new senator that was elected for my district, District 14, Kate Lieber. So I would mention, I mentioned those two individuals because they're office level, but the school board level, THBRD around the system development charges and what they're trying to do. I think if we can engage as many people to be involved, would be really great. Those are my feedback. I will say, I really appreciated the index, the cheat sheet. I'll call it cheat sheet that was included in the this packet. It was really helpful to me, and I know I'm coming into these conversations a little later, so I really appreciated. So I'm not sure if it's a lot of work, but the investments, if there was a cheat sheet per district that was put together so that we can identify where the heavy concentrations of work is being done, or things like that. Because I can see myself making comments about, oh, my district is experiencing, because of Beaverton School District, a lot of the kids experiencing, couch surfing and homelessness. I can see myself saying, why aren't we getting a lot of the money, or why aren't we being the focus? But to avoid that, it would be really ideal to see how the investment is being done, and how we're prioritizing areas of concern. So that's just a minor request, but down the road.
Phew.
Madam Chair, if I may quickly respond to Commissioner Willie's question. Commissioner Willie, you asked a question about Washington County monies being spent in Washington County. In the Metro work plan that was released in November, there was a hint that, let me read it. It says, Metro may adjust the allocation formula if program funds are unable to be fully spent in accordance with the regional program. So that was a hint in the work plan, and we intend to take it up in the IGA with county council, so that issue is addressed, that Washington County dollars are spent here to meet the regional program. I think the IGA
just will with the regional program.
Well,
it's not in general. It's just with that aspect of the program, not the disbursements to the 3 counties. Well, so it's not hinting at changing the county disbursements from what was improved on for the first few years that the voters approved.
Okay.
Well, I think clarification will be extremely important because obviously there is no clarification between us on this meeting. So clarification is going to be important. If I could segue just a little bit, Comey or Josh, whichever one, I need you to explain to me the difference between the IGA and the LIP. Which one are going to be the rules of the road, the operating guidelines that we will be following in the implementation and putting this money to work?
So in my experience, the IGA is the Intergovernmental Agreement, IGA, that is legally binding. And it's going to be signed between the county and Metro.
But referencing the adopted LIP.
The LIP, it's a governing document, a plan, so to speak.
That is referenced by the IGA. We've done this before.
Yeah, correct. And the LIP is really our opportunity to work and engage our community and really understand and get that community engagement about what are those priorities. What's the community saying, right? On the levels of equity, on the levels of planned investment. So it's really our chance to engage with the community and bring this work forward. And then, as the chair said, that will be referenced within the IGA document as we work on that with Metro.
Okay.
What may be helpful is to share the Supportive Housing Services IGA with Commissioner Willie, as well as the adopted Affordable Housing LIP, so that he can see that there's a track record for how this is done. Because the model
I understand
is,
there's a track record. I understand that part. I was asking more of a specific guidelines that when the rubber hits the road, we're following the guidelines that we all agreed to and established in the LIP, which is with an umbrella of the IGA, which is just obviously an intergovernmental agreement.
Right.
And so I get all of that. Okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that because I've been very interested in this LIP and certainly the SHS, sorry, the FISA, using acronyms, but all of that, I've been very interested in watching this kind of from the sidelines, but also having some very specific things that I wanted to make sure was accomplished in that. So that's, I mean, I'll just hit the pause button on that and just say I want to be paying attention to that, and we'll see how we do.
That's great. It's perfectly reasonable to have questions. What I am trying to make sure stops is that Washington County Board of Commissioners and/or staff casts shadows, that there's something nefarious going on. Metro has been very clear and specific as they have provided the work plan, as they have constructed the oversight committee and all their engagements. And I will continue to take issue with casting fear or, the devil's in the detail kind of crap that this county is known for having a track record of. I have been working a lot with the mayors to get that track record changed. And as I get hints of it, I'm going to call it out because it doesn't serve us well. We need to follow through on what the voters approved. And if we have detailed questions on that, great. But I think we have a good track record over the last couple of years for understanding the role of LIPs, local implementation plans for Metro programs, and having the appropriate legal documents, the intergovernmental agreements, the IGAs, to operationalize those programs and the disbursement of the money for those programs. Oops. Were there any other questions that staff wanted to address?
Chair Harrington, if I could make a comment. So I appreciate the board's confidence in this team. I share that confidence and just want to express appreciation for the great work that I know they will be doing moving forward. This is a tight timeline, and so communication is key. So the dates that the team have listed today will be on the rolling calendar. In addition, we will be moving forward to a written email that will be in your inbox, just a weekly progress update of what we've done over the last week. This is information that I'll be receiving from the team, and it will help keep communication channels open with board members and address questions should you receive them from constituents.
Does the team feel comfortable that as you provide the major versions of the LIP 2021 document to the board, that we each deal with our question handling in 5 different ways, right? You know, for me, that I try to read the packet as soon as it comes out and get you the biggest questions or unknowns that are obstacles to my understanding the general gist of it and following up from there. Do you have that level of interaction already with at least the 4 tenured board members from 2019 that went through the affordable housing LIP, or do you need us to work up anything new in order to support your proposed schedule?
Chair Harrington, that's a great question, and I appreciate that seeking clarity on the process. So I can confidently say I've been in contact with all board members relative to this process on varying levels. And so I know just in our recent check-ins, Commissioner Fye and I have had initial conversations, but I'm confident that all board members bring concerns forward and then we work them through the team very quickly.
Great. Excellent. Okay. Anything for closure, Ms. Angie or the team?
No, just prior to moving on to the next agenda item, I just have a quick update for the board.
Yeah, nothing on the housing team's end. Thank you so much for your time on this today.
Okay, well, you also have experience knowing the time that it took in our presentation today. So that'll help inform us for preparing for the next one in February. Great.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Drive safe home, Comey.
Awesome. I'll be all right. Thanks.
Okay. So, Ms. Angie, you had an update before the next item.
Yes, so in your inbox, as this presentation was going, I was multitasking on Teams and made the decision to close county facilities based on recommendations that we were hearing of road conditions across the county. So just want to provide you with that information. In addition, I have connected with the team that is on site in the auditorium, and they have assured me that they have safe means to get home and are committed to a smooth meeting this evening.
Okay. So then we have 2 more topics. The next one is amending the emergency ordinance to extend the length of time for declarations. I assume that's emergency declarations.
Yes, Madam Chair, you recall this was brought up by Commissioner Rogers, who requested that we extend the time. We initially was 14 days. We moved it to 30 days. I propose either 60 or 90, but you could, I suppose, move it to 120. But only thing I'm asking is for is direction to come back with this. and give me a date to fill, a time limit to fill in on that thing. We'll be able to do it as emergency ordinance all at one hearing. So we'll be able to first reading, the public hearing, and if you so want, we'll do it that way.
Well, gee, talk about crystal balls. It feels to me like we're going to be in this mode through at least September. So how do we get through this?
Madam Chair, I'd propose, and thank you for taking this up, I'd propose 90 days. I think the optics of that are fine, and we can come back every 90 days if we need to, and not too long, it's not too short. So that would be my recommendation.
We can always terminate it, right?
It's up to 90 days. So and again, if you have a flooding event, you can make it for 10 days or 14 days.
Well, so there's up to, but once we've declared it, if it turns out after a period of time, we're in the free and clear, we can terminate it, right?
That's very true.
Okay. Okay. So I'm really comfortable with that proposal of up to 90 days.
Up to 90 days. Okay, I'll bring that back. I'll be on a future agenda as soon as we can get some space on your agenda. We'll put that on.
Terrific. Woohoo. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers, for bringing that up. Okay, so next on our agenda is an executive session. So do we have a motion to enter into executive session ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub H?
So move with the caveat that I think we have to go out of this meeting and come back, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We do.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 5-0. So we all need to check our calendars and come back in through that other Zoom address.
I'll be right back.